Hello, listeners. Welcome to season 2 of the Masters Decoded podcast. I am Anis Merchant, the chief decoder. I want to thank you for the overwhelming response to season 1. Your feedback and encouragement led me to bring you season 2 of the Masters Decoded. The season will tap into how technology, artificial intelligence, and other socio-economic factors have impacted my guests' careers or passions. Continuing with the special Masters Decoded series in partnership with Asian Digital Supermovers and hosted on ClubHouse every Sunday, I'm pleased to announce the second episode. This week we have Sameer Dhanrajani, CEO of AIQrate and President of 3i Association, sharing his perspective on the role of AI in Asia. Without much further ado, let's get on with it. Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking time out on a Sunday. It's probably we are doing this session now. This is the third one. We started off with having Prahlad Kakkar, and last week we had Deep Bajaj from Serona. Definitely, the last two conversations have been enriching, and we'll ensure that today's conversation will also touch a topic which is different from the previous two, which is focused on AI. Uh, Let me quickly introduce Sameer. I've known Sameer for many years now, but today in the capacity, Sameer is a CEO of a AI consulting firm called AIQrate. In addition to that, he has been a founding member as well as, and I would let Sameer introduce himself, but there's an association which is run in India which is called 3AI. I don't want to steal your thunder, Sameer. You want to quickly introduce to everyone what you do?
Sure, Anis. Just keep me sane in terms of my audio quality. I hope it's okay.
It's perfect.
Okay, great. First of all, thanks so much, Anis Mushi, for inviting Clubhouse chat. Great to participate Sunday, but Father's Day, so good occasion to actually steal some time from the family and participate in this. As Anis mentioned, I am the CEO and co-founder of our AI advisory and consulting company called AI Curate. What we do primarily is actually advise CXO senior leaders and boards on curating, which is a very unique thing called AI strategy. This is more about uh, creating a blueprint in terms of how organizations can leapfrog in terms of being more specific about data driven and also in terms of shaping up their entire business model basis AI. Besides that, I'm also the president of an association and platform called AI and Analytics, what we call 3AI. This is India's largest platform for AI analytics aspirants and professionals, ideally bringing some 250 plus AI analytics thought leaders and mentors with working professionals and students coming on the platform as mentees and members. Previous to this, I was the chief of strategy for Fractal. And before Fractal, I was the global head of analytics and data science for Cognizant and ran a GCC of Fidelity as a country head before Cognizant. So that's me, Anis.
Thanks, Sameer. Definitely a far enriching career. And for everyone, the format of today's session is I'm going to have some perspectives and ask Sameer to weigh in on those perspectives for the first 15, 20 minutes. And then we'll open it up to audience to come on the stage and have any of their questions answered from Sameer or anyone else. Starting off, the theme of the topic today is role of AI in Asia. Sameer, the last 1.5 year has been interesting, and especially interesting for Asia because everything started from Asia, the pandemic, and it spread across the world. Definitely, the big focus was humanity at large. But now, when the world is coming back to, I would say, some sort of normalcy, AI was already a big focus for many organizations and individuals from a career perspective. What do you see as the role of AI in Asia going forward?
Anis, if we just back up in terms of a bit about AI today, I think the holy grail question in everyone's mind is look, AI has always been touted as the most advanced, most sophisticated, and most progressive technology field, practice arena, or a segment. And by far, I think by now everyone is aware, it's absolutely, I would say, supreme when it comes to amongst all the other exponential technologies, because the underpinning of any other exponential technologies, whether it's IoT or let's say even cryptography or let's say cybersecurity, is about AI, the algorithms which are doing the trick. Now, having said that, I think there are three-pronged approach what I see in terms of how AI is shaping up in Asia. Now, one, and I'm talking more from adoption, which is the first dimension. The adoption seemingly, which started as more like a muted, okay, let's see how it goes, has become more evangelical when it comes to how it needs to be kind of bought in, how it needs to be adopted, how it needs to be internalized. Which means, if you look at some of the surveys which has been recently done by the McKinsey and the Gartner specifically about Asia-specific AI adoption, I think the larger mid-size organizations have started realizing that AI adoption needs to happen from top to bottom rather than just kind of figuring out a specific function or a stream and then making that AI work. It's not going to happen. So, what's happening? I mean, I'm sure we've all seen one. There is a very strategic focus in terms of something being called like AI led enterprise or AI first enterprise or data driven enterprise. What that means is, I think today, the boards, the CXOs, and the senior leaders are trying to internalize AI in terms of how it works for their organization or their segment overall. So that's one, I would say, aspect. The second aspect of the dimension, particularly from an Asia specific point of view, is the research and development spent for the companies to invest in curating deep AI capabilities have gone up significantly. Now, this is not just restricted to China or Japan, which has always been leaders into this. Now, if you study a report about the patents and the kind of, let's say, research papers which are coming out globally, it's a very recent news that China has overtaken US for the first time. Now, outside of China and Japan, I think what's happening, countries like Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, they're also, and I'm just trying to take out the India story for the time being with all due regard, but the focus over there is more about how does the best of the abilities or rather the capabilities and solutions are created with the best of research and development. So there is a great, I would say, intake which has happened in terms of a surge of AI investments from a research, from a kind of a solutioning point of view, which also means, I think, if we look at the legacy side of the companies. Now, if we take this research from a company called Silent, now that's a very interesting research which Silent did actually. So they actually talked to about 1,000 odd companies in Asia Pacific region, particularly in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Japan. What came out from these 1,000 odd organizations, and all were legacy brick and mortar with a 25 plus year, I would say, history of their inception. Uh, 87% of them are considering adoption of AI as a kind of a, let's say, jump starting in terms of the, I mean, taking away themselves from a brick and mortar business to kind of getting into what we call exponential technologies or kind of a, let's say, purely kind of a aspect of how they can determine the ROIs from the AI. Now, that's a very significant lift in terms of what we see how the legacy companies have started, or the brick and mortar companies have started understanding the significance of AI. The third is, of course, as far as the opportunities are concerned. Now, we've always had this analytics, data science as steady practices in terms of large opportunities coming in area. Now, what has happened? Suddenly, the whole new tracks of computer vision, image classification, NLP, NLU, text. Now, within there, uh, I mean, these streams, the specialization per se is kind of creating new set of opportunities because today the departments in the companies where AI is being adopted are realizing that they need these experts, whether it's a machine learning experts to even AI strategists or ethnographic professionals to come in to kind of start creating new personas, start creating new kind of a, let's say, set of AI capability. So alongside all these dimensions, Anis, there is a great pivot which is happening from Asia Pacific market perspective when it comes to AI adoption.
No, from my perspective, Sameer, when I say role of AI in Asia, actually AI has put Asia on map in the world, because today specifically countries like China or India or many of the other big countries were always looked upon as an offshoring or a manufacturing or largely other types of engagements. But because of AI, there is a huge global demand of not only talent but also looking at how India or China or any of the other countries in Asia can be those guiding light as AI gets defined and refined. Many of the experimentations which need to be done at large scale is being conducted today in Asia, more so with some of the global companies than when they think about the other Western countries. Not to say that the Western countries are staying behind, but definitely, I from my side, I see that AI has definitely put Asia on the map, specifically when it comes to what the future holds from a technology perspective. But candidly, there is a lot of hype also. There is a lot of because these small experiments or these small wins have led to a lot of startups, a lot of ecosystem getting created, and a lot of hype getting created. What's your perspective on that hype? How much is smoke and mirrors and really value out there?
So first of all, Anis, always believe mind share leads to market share, and that's something which is uh, absolutely signifies AI. I think what started, as you rightly said, set or a stream of experiments have resulted into now holistic adoption. Now, let's understand two facets when it comes to AI adoption. And given that I've worked with many organizations across the globe, I think there is also some blame, with all due regards, we can put to the top executives of the companies, which are just waiting to jumpstart to AI straight away without getting the bare foundations of data infrastructure intact. I mean, going intact. So that's where most of these experiments or siloed approach is failing, because analytics to AI is a journey. It's a continuum. It cannot be just a kind of a, let's say, a point where you say, okay, I would be an AI organization tomorrow onwards. No. I mean, there is a maturity curve, there is a road mapping, and there is a sense of, I would say, internalization which needs to happen. And that's where most of these companies stumble when it comes to the adoption. The second part over there is that there is always this force factor. Do we build? Do we buy? Do we kind of look at any other arrangement? Now, specifically, I think why there is a bit of acceleration of AI adoption in Asia, specifically the companies based out of Asia, I would say, the accelerator and the ecosystem approach, or what we call the partnership and alliance approach, has worked beautifully. It's about stitching the right set of companies which are niche boutique in a particular area, and then ensuring that these organizations are providing, or startups or boutique firms are providing the solutions which is required, rather than just creating the ability or that competency in house, which invariably leads to, if talent is not there, then you can't create that capability of AI. So I think some of these, what I call secret sauce, from specifically from the AI specific providers, or I would say the players in Asia, is leading to, I would say, more, I would say, significant growth in Asia specific countries when it comes to adoption of AI.
Great. Mashir, Pritesh, anyone wants to quickly reset the room before we move ahead on the other discussions?
Thanks, Anis, and thank you, Sameer, so much for those insights. Asia is playing a big role, and we would love to hear more from what you have to say on this. This is the Asian Digital Supermovers Club. We're talking about the role of artificial intelligence in Asia. We bring in OGs from different elements of walks of life on digital ecosystem. Please ping in your friends, your network, who should be in this room to listen to the interesting topic about how artificial intelligence is changing our lives, especially in Asia. We will soon be opening up the floor for questions, so please be ready. In about 10 to 15 minutes' time, we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So back to you, Anis.
Thanks. And I'm sure there are a lot of party hats joining in as well. So, there are people who are looking to build careers too, Sameer, in AI. And there is too much of confusion also when you think about building careers in AI, because there are so many streams where a person can start building their career in AI. And whether it's your current job where you're consulting with companies and you see people around those companies, or prior to this role where you've set up capability centers in Asia for large companies or worked on the consulting side, what's your perspective on careers when it comes to AI?
So let me start, and this is a very interesting question, Anis. And I remember in a very kind of not too far back an anecdote when I was working with Cognizant. I was setting up a center of competency for Bedu. And Bedu has this large, as we all know, research facility in China, being the largest search engine. So, one of the starking contrasts which happened to me when we were trying to set up the competency, AI competency center for Bedu, the first thing after we gave a blueprint, and I was actually there in that research facility, and that's as big as I would say one particular district of Bombay or a kind of a, let's say, Bangalore. But one of the startling revelation I find of their 650 research associates who actually were earmarked to start the competency center in AI, all of them carried one designation. And in China, that designation relates to something called AI evangelist. One designation, irrespective of their experience, pedigree, or kind of a credentials. And the idea was that look, if these 600 plus uh, AI professionals can become the brand ambassadors for Bedu, obviously the organization will be taken to the next level. So that's one anecdote I wanted to bring, how companies have also become innovative now. Truly said, I think AI analytics, and I'm trying to use both in the same tandem, is a very large, expansive, and a broad segment. Now, if we put together, and this is something I've worked with many of the organization in terms of the talent mapping, uh, there are 265 plus career, I would say, pathways and job families in AI and analytics. And let me tell you how it is, kind of a thing. One, AI is not specific uh, to one organization or business function. It's, as I would say, broad in terms of roles, new roles opening up, uh, dependent on the industry or business function. But if we crunch these 265 job roles or job families, this is how it looks like. So think of this as a kind of a pyramid or a triangle. The base of the pyramid in AI career stack is about data aggregation, data consolidation, data assimilation. Because without that, because we've all realized today with the advent of uh, this whole stream of structured, unstructured digital data coming in, you can't escape not getting the right of, rather the best of data aggregators. Now, many of the careers are getting started over there, but the next level, which is what I call the data mediation or the data engineering layer, is important because that's where the data is getting harmonized. The whole set of data modernization, data lakes, and the data engineering, which is the new buzz, is all housed. The whole idea over there is to institute a capability of building the right data pipes. Now, let me give an example how today critical data pipes or the robust data pipes are for the organization. Now, just a couple of years back, and this is just before COVID, we all knew. There are some movie stars who are always late in joining Instagram, and Jennifer Aniston is one of them. She's a famous star everyone knows from Friends serial. She joined Instagram, and she was late in joining Instagram. Within 15 minutes of her joining Instagram, she got about 7.5 million followers, and Instagram crashed. The next day, New York Times reported Instagram algorithms do not work. Well, actually, it wasn't the fault of the algorithms. It was actually the data pipes which were not able to take the load. And I think somewhere organizations have realized that if they want to build more algorithmic prowess or capability, they need to have very robust data pipes. And that's the reason data engineering has become a very pivotal piece today as part of this stack. The Third layer is about this algorithmic layer in terms of building the best of the machine enabled ensemble techniques algorithm based on segmentation, optimization, classification, and all. And I think over there is a parsing of career options in terms of whether you are specializing in image classification to, let's say, computer vision to even NLP, NLU. And the last layer is what we call the visualization, because eventually you're not delivering algorithms, you're delivering a kind of a matrix, a kind of a report based on a KPIs or a kind of a dashboard, which is good for a stakeholder or client. Now, within this four quadrant, or let's say this triangle, if you map AI basis banks, let's say, or let's say insurance or retail life sciences companies, or even kind of segment by HR, finance, or marketing, you will find different job families and career option existing. And that's where this job families becomes a 265 plus very, very solid kind of a career stack.
Did you just say 265 job families?
Absolutely. And I say 265 plus.
Okay. Wow. That's definitely there. I would love to see them coming to life in organization, at least in my job lifetime, for sure. Uh, Mushir, Pritesh, any perspective for Sameer from your side?
Thanks, Anis. Quick one, Samir, maybe it'll be a longer one depending on the answer. One of the things we are now dealing with as AI becomes more or less very embedded in our day to day lives, right? It's no longer a question of capability. There's enough computing power, there's enough and very strong models across the base. Is the question of explainable AI, right? The whole conversation of machine learning and deep learning going into a phase where machines can execute certain things, but with specifically in industries such as automotive when it comes to self-driving, or when it comes to places like in financial markets when a trading decision is taken by an AI and can lead to, in the automotive industry, a crash, in the market a market crash needs to be explained. So how do you see explainable AI growing, and what attention are the creators of the biggest artificial intelligence programs globally looking at it?
Well, that's a very, I would say, pertinent, topical, but I would always say, Mushid, this question has always been there from last 20 years. I mean, my 18 of my 23 years of working experience has been spent into analytics AI. And I remember when I used to work for Genpact during that Jekis days, and we were doing a lot of analytics stuff for banks. And retail companies at that point of time in terms of credit card analytics. The first question at that point of time used to be asked by G Money professionals at that point, hey, what happens to the data if something goes wrong? So I think from there till today, this whole aspect of the privacy, the whole aspect of kind of ethics, governance has always come out to be a challenge for the companies because we all realize the pitfalls or the ramifications, what can happen if the data goes, I would say the data adriftness happens in terms of some manual interventions going wrong. Now, this is my approach. I always say that, look, AI, and I'm trying to make it a bit provocative by saying that AI alone is not enough today to solve complex, large, and unresolved problems for any enterprise. And why do I say that AI alone is not enough? Because if we look at in terms of end to end AI adoption, it's a trifactor of AI engineering, which is all about this data modernization, data lake. And third is the design piece. Now, this is an often neglected piece over there when I say, because often algorithms are being designed, and we are all aware that this is algorithms are nothing but a bunch of patterns or a black box kind of a thing, what you rightly said. Now, how do you make algorithms getting adopted from a deployment perspective? Now, from a thumb rule today, ask any AI analytics professional, only one out of seven algorithms get implemented or gets deployed in the market. And a large bank or a kind of a, let's say, large retailer is sitting on 400 plus libraries of algorithms. Now, having said that, now two things happens over there. One, we realize that algorithms always need refreshing. They always need new caveats, exemptions to come in. Now, think of this situation as we say pre COVID, from a e-commerce retail point of view or even retailers point of view, everyone was buying apparels. Usual life, we were all going to office or going to shop, going to, let's say, malls and all. Suddenly, during the lockdown, the whole demand shifted to oral hygienes, hand sanitizers. Algorithms drifted to the extent there were some anomalies which were actually there, and the manual interventions were required. Similarly, for banks, I mean, all these kind of a demand scenarios in terms of credit and supply of the money required algorithms to kind of be changed. Now, all these things, if not actually getting into a space of how these things needs to be done from an aspect of governance ethics, the models or the algorithms will always go astray. Now the second part, or rather the other part, latter part, where I was coming to design. Now, design is not about just a UI UX. Design is more about what we say the cognitive neuroscience or the psychology, sociology, or the anthropology part. Because over there, what companies are now trying to do, which are trying to better their AI performance, they're trying to create teams of AI professionals with the cognitive neuroscience sociologist or the anthropologist or what we call folks from the liberal arts. And never has been a good time into this stream because in our own school days or the college days, we all realized that look, we always treated liberal arts as something which may not be too revered, but it has become a very revered occupation or a profession or a stream of study today. Because what's happening? Let me give an example of this AI and design coming together. And this is where the whole explainable part comes in. Oral-B, which is a company of acquired by P&G, part of the Gillette earlier, they came with a toothbrush which had a sensor. Not a big deal. Many of the instrument device machines have sensors today. Now, this sensor also came in if you buy this brush with an app. You can download this app, and Oral-B found that an idle brushing time for any adult or a kid is 2 minutes. And for the ones in this particular chat who are having kids, I mean, of course, now the school going days are not there due to the COVID, but realize when the kids used to go to the schools in the morning, how hard it is to make them brush. And 2 minutes is a big brushing time. So the app works in a way where you show the kid when he or she is brushing. Uh, the whole visualization chart comes on the mobile, the contours where the brush has gone, the total time elapsed in terms of the brushing. Anything less than 2 minutes, if the kid stop brushing, there is a frowning emoji with a kind of a red color emoticon. And we know that today how our lives are governed by emoticons and emoji. So you show it to the kid, there is a screeching noise when it's less than 2 minutes, and the kid, of course, gets a bit intimidated, and he or she will go back and brush the teeth again. And post 2 minutes, then there is a happy jingle, there is a kind of a good smiling emoji, and now the kid is happy in terms of saying he or she has brushed. So that AI, and I would say uh, creating this cognitive neuroscience kind of a appeal has started working for the organizations, not only restricted to CPG or retail, but even for the banks who are creating personas of their consumers to kind of bank more or kind of be more cautious about all these things. And I think that's the wave which will catch on in terms of how AI engineering and design will prove out to be much more better for the organizations in terms of doing a competitive advantage.
And Mushi, just to add to what Sameer just said, it's profound from an experience and from an example which was shared. Today, explainability is also there when people put together business strategies. Why somebody's recommending a particular step. Today, there is a sophistication which is involved from a technical perspective where tools and technologies are available to do data lineage as well as model lineage, which allows organizations to do and explain why a particular model or an AI engine is recommending step A or step B. And the struggle happens when the person who's developing the model doesn't understand the application of why a model will do or behave certain things. That's where the challenge really comes in on the explainability. But using other technology ecosystems where you can do data lineage exercise, you can do model lineage exercise, you can actually have explainability built into your process. On that note, Mashir, should we open up to the audience because there are quite a bit of them listening patiently and may have questions for Sameer. So, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if you have any questions, please raise your hands and come on stage and you can ask questions. For those of you who are new to Clubhouse, please click on the icon with the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. Samir, I'm sure, would be happy to take your questions on different elements of AI and the role that it plays in our daily lives and professional lives in Asia. Ashok, please go ahead, ask your question, make an introduction about yourself, and then get to the question.
Sure, thanks, Mushir. Hi, everyone. Hi, panel. So I'm I'm a career banker in financial services, but my academic training is international affairs and diplomacy, and I've got a special interest in Asia for academically as well as due to the fact that I was born and raised in Bombay and based on some of my work experience in the region. Um, so my question for the mods or anyone else was really about um, can anyone speak to like just teasing out some sort of data vis-a-vis or facts like that would guide us towards understanding like yeah, Asia is a big continent. Asia's a very large area. Like where, relatively speaking, different countries are in in their progress in AI and machine learning. Like, the relative number of patents being filed in Japan, China, India, or which are the biggest companies doing work in the region. Just some sort of empirical data to put the broader theme into context. Who's most advanced in terms of the domestic research and stuff like that? Thanks.
Go for it, Sameer.
Yeah, so let me take that, Ashok. I think if we take into consideration what I call AI prowess amongst the Asia, I would say Asian countries, definitely China, uh, I would say outscore every other country. Given it's a national priority, they also have a very densely curated AI strategy. Having said that, India also has one. But the sheer number of patents and the research in AI machine learning itself is a reflection how much the country is trying to invest in beefing up the whole research, I would say, infrastructure from an AI perspective. Companies like SciSense, Maglev are two top companies, in fact, quoting billion plus dollar, I would say, valuations. But this is what is happening. Let me give you a sense in terms of what's happening first in China and then move to other countries. There are close to about 3,400 startups in China. And particularly in my last two stints with Fractal and Cognizant, I've been instrumental in opening up the China market, which includes the extended Japan as well. Now, what's happening over there amongst these 300, or rather 3,000 plus startups in China? There are two levels of play which is happening. What started downstream in China was a lot of labeling and annotation shops came in, or boutique firms came in China to collect the data from image, voice, text, and video side. Because this is a journey they started 10 years back, or rather 8 years back, and realized that they need to kind of ensure that there is a steady supply of what I call the AI related data. Let me give you why this is important, and we often miss the significance of data from the non obvious sources just to make the machines more smarter. For a human eye, it takes just two images to distinguish between a cat and a dog, maximum two images. For a machine, it requires 500,000 images. Now, think of this when you're trying to make machines more smarter, more robust, more intelligent. You need that kind of a sane, sanitized, and kind of a, let's say, undubious data. And that's where the labeling and annotation industry in China today is 25 billion worth of dollars. I mean, this is as equal to about 38 billion US dollars of BPM industry we have in India. Now, having said that, the post, I mean, they saw this whole success of labeling and annotating kind of, let's say, services side. they started investing in going deep into starting computer vision, image classification, speech recognition set of companies, taking very, I would say, large, complex, unresolved problems in image, voice, text, and data. And that's where, if you see these Sisense, Maglev, and others, they've taken these computer vision or, let's say, machine learning kind of, let's say, areas to the next level. Now, the fact over there, how it works, coming to China, most of the specific banks, large manufacturing company, as we know, are public owned over there, kind of a thing. So the first set of even all these AI interventions are being looked upon in terms of making those experiments as a mass level. And once it happens, then they open up these set of startups or the companies to take it on with, I would say, the big wigs. Now, when it comes to, let's say, the countries like Japan, I think the most of the technological advancement in AI is happening on the automotive and the manufacturing side, and that too specific in terms of more kind of a, let's say, orientation towards this connected car kind of a, let's say, mechanism, or the autonomous car kind of a sophistication what we are talking about. Now, Singapore, while they're having a very thriving AI kind of a ecosystem, specifically from a research or a education perspective, lack the scale obviously because of the population. But interestingly over there, I think the one key aspect what has happened in Singapore is the smart city investment they have done in making AI embedded as part of their smart city, I would say, uh, infrastructure, or I would say overall ecosystem. So that's something which is very highlighting. Malaysia, Vietnam, and other countries specifically are still, I would say, going up on their maturity of analytics to AI. May take some more time in terms of really getting more beefy over there when it comes to AI ecosystem. Anis, feel free to add, please.
No, and just to add to what Sameer mentioned, the reason why you see China definitely leading the pack in Asia as compared to other countries is, the other dimension, which is the academia and the, I would say, the enterprise side really collaborating better. And it's not just the academia and the enterprise, but academia and government also, which you see a big plus in Western countries, specifically in the US. Other countries like Malaysia, Singapore has started picking up. It's probably becoming one of the biggest as well pretty soon. And you definitely see that in Japan as well. But other countries, especially in countries like India, there's still a big gap between that ecosystem and between that partnership being set up. Now, India definitely has an AI formal policy, which really, hopefully, that's fundamental, that's required. But these policies are as okay as a piece of paper, but until unless those collaborations starts happening more, probably that would lead to further aspects in the whether it's leading in patterns or focused on how these adoptions programs really go ahead in the space. One of the other interesting fact is, especially in a country like India, each state government has now started having their own specific AI initiatives. It's still a big hush hush, but during COVID there were these. I would give an example that there were these, command centers which were set up by the state governments, and some of the mature state governments, not every state government did that, where they use drones and they use other aspects to really monitor the footfall, really monitor the hotspot areas, where they could use data from those drones to predict the surge in COVID and really drive that. Now, for those were, I mentioned that earlier, that those are pocket of small experiments or examples, but to scale them into different dimensions, whether these are solving supply chain or humanitarian aid movements, the applications are more, but there needs to be a will to drive that further. So yeah, I don't know, Ashok, if I answered, we answered your question, but
No. That thanks a lot, both Sameer and Anis. That provides just more color. I mean, I certainly need to do a lot more reading on this subject. It's of interest, and I mean, the education piece you brought up was interesting, and I was just wondering if, for example, like the IITs, who I'm dating myself, I'm sure a little bit. been better known for their BTech and MTech programs and sort of feeder programs into the IIMs and all of that. Whether they have, let's say, for example, masters or PhD programs in AI and machine learning, and as part of them maybe computer science departments, because there's such a wealth of just incredible talent that India churns out from those places. I mean, it seems that should be kind of a natural place to go to at least get the foundational cadre or seed corn to build up capabilities, right? I mean, I don't know if they have them. I don't know if anyone knows if the IITs have started PhD programs in AI and ML or something.
Well, Ashok, not to extend further, but I'll just take one piece over there. And this is very large and maybe a separate theme altogether. I work with a lot of educational institutions in terms of, I would say, instilling AI ecosystem or AI specific interventions there. I think the aspect from a India education point of view, specifically with national education policy coming, is not about just ITIMs. Look, the government has already opened 25 plus ITIMs further, but the overall intake remains about 15 to 20,000. We have a overall annual enrollments of students who pass out from 12th is almost 35 million actually. 1.8 million are engineering graduates every year. Only 18% of them are deployable, and only 2% of the overall engineering college. By the way, the academic institution landscape in India is about 50,000, 800 universities, 12,000 kind of standalone institute, and rest are all, I would say, academic institutions, 38,000. Only 2% of the institutes all across India have any AI or analytics set of programs or teaching kind of facilities over there. Now, that will not solve the problem when it comes to today. There are 350,000 open positions in AI analytics, and the bigger conundrum to already this existing complicated scenario is one out of 35 kind of, let's say, only one student or one kind of a professional out of 35 gets selected in AI analytics, because there is a larger rejection happening because we are not able to contextualize the knowledge what's getting imparted even today. And this is a very large kind of a, let's say, problem which needs a very, very different solution.
One of the interesting facts about Sameer is he's really good with data. You would always see, and I know him enough, he will be able to easily share stats and data top of his mind. So thank you, Sameer, for throwing some light. Jeevan?
Hi, good evening, all. Yeah, so I'm from fintech company. I'm design manager. So the question to Samir, like, how AI will bring change into banking experience, like also neo banking. Yeah, so it's, yeah.
So first of all, Jeevan, it's very heartening to hear a design person in fintech. Fintech, that's a rare commodity, but uh, uh, I would say rare but very increasing set of, I would say, professionals coming in.
I
See,
call myself as a holistic designer. I connect all the spaces like design, engineering, AI. But it's not like like I am strong at design. Yeah, 10 years experience. But I try to listen. Like yeah, AI is booming. AI is like part of like so yeah. So that's my question today.
great. No, I'll just, I would give us a short kind of a, let's say, or rather a brief aspect over there. I think the biggest, I would say, advantage what fintech companies are enjoying over the traditional brick and mortar big bulge banks is purely the deconstruction of the banking value chain which has happened, and each and every part of that new value chain of the banking, whether it's a retail mortgage investment, is now getting embedded with AI. Now think of this whole credit assessment to kind of, let's say, the whole aspect of educational loans to even go gold getting mortgage on uh, online through these fintech companies. All of them have invested, first of all, in creating a very robust database of their customers or prospects, because that's where the first aspect of enhancing the customer experience starts. And the second is this whole engine of decision making is what the investment is going over there in terms of this AI enabled engine, where the credit assessment to the worthiness of yeah, a kind of a potential customer cannot just be basis the CIBIL score, because we know the different issues what we have in CIBIL score in India, but also picking up factorials or determinants from social media, the kind of preferences what we display or the emotions what we exude on social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, or let's say Twitter. All these carry some attributes about our personas. So I'm aware of some of the fintech companies which are blending AI and behavioral science, or rather creating new set of personas to kind of mitigate any kind of a risk while kind of dishing out or kind of deploying any financial products for their customers. And this is where I think what will happen, while the engines today in the fintech companies on the AI side is not robust, but as we see more new set of data coming in. Now, I realize, just to give an example to make it much more lucid, uh, some of the fintech companies, when they're onboarding new customers, they're doing a just 1 minute kind of an interview. And what they're trying to do this through this video enabled interviews to capture the whole facial recognition of the prospective customer, to understand through the voice or through the medium of the facial expression how true are their kind of a, let's say, statements when they are saying. So any kind of a, let's say, lump in the throat or a softness in the voice when you're showing a buoyant expression could be tantamount to that maybe you're faking. So some of these facial expressions and even speech recognitions techniques through AI are coming handy to kind of assess the whole credit worthiness, or I would say the genuinity of the customers. And that's where fintech companies are trying to embark upon new initiatives on AI, which to me is just scratching the surface, and many more new enablements will happen.
Thanks, Sumit. It's very insightful, actually. You've given like I think the last 2 minutes was like very insightful for me. You gave the example of like video, right? 1 minute, yeah.
Thanks, Samir, and thanks, Jeevan. Just doing a quick reset. This is the Asian Digital Super Movers Club. We bring in OGs and influencers from Asian digital ecosystem to talk about their journeys and about different topics. This is a joint room with Masters Decoded, which Anis hosts. We are doing the AMA Q&A. If you have a question for Samir, please raise your hand and come join us on stage for your questions. I'll hand over now to Chinmay, who's also part of the ADSM team and our wonderful intern.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me up here. So, this has definitely been a very interesting conversation. And I come from the psychology background, so I know that intelligence or emotion are very abstract concepts, right? But somehow the human race has been able to give justice to the system of AI, and I'm pretty sure it will expand meteorically over the years. But a while back, I heard you talk about this app, right? That is connected to the toothbrush and it reacts to the emotion that humans face. So let's say it is a very hypothetical question, but let's say if we were able to incorporate the emotion aspect or build the emotional quotient in this into the system, I beg the question: how will it, in your opinion, affect the world or per se the future, um, positively or negatively? Because I think what AI currently lacks is the ability to process and analyze human emotions. So, if we say that was to be possible in the coming future, how would it enhance or affect the world? Thank you.
See, I think I'm glad, Chinmay, you brought this question of the emotional intelligence or the emotional quotient, because often I think the AI conversations at some point of time becomes drab, because we are talking about this whole black box and this algorithmic set of techniques. But let me tell you, I think there is a sense, and a very large sense, which has started coming in terms of companies who are deploying massive, large scale, I would say, implementations of AI. uh, and having said that, they're trying to incorporate the best of the breed, what I call design, or these cognitive neuroscience solutions today. If you look at the trajectory of many of the banks, retail companies, life sciences, or even healthcare companies, they already have a lot of sociologists, anthropologists on their roles, along with the AI professionals who are trying to design what I call a human centered kind of AI systems or AI machines. Now, what happens over there? And since you are kind of a student of psychology and you know this stuff, emotion is a state of mind, and a state of mind is always fungible. As we say that, how do you design AI solutions for a subconscious mind? Because eventually, any AI machine will try to kind of work at a full pace in terms of producing the best of efficacy because or effectiveness, because that's how the algorithm has been incorporated. Now, what challenges happen? Emotions and algorithms do not, I mean, see, it's a kind of a yin and yang situation kind of a thing. And even the Tinder kind of a situation cannot solve this algorithm because there is so much of fungibility and dynamics when it relates to kind of getting AI connected with the emotions. That's where the personas are coming into the picture, where the psychologists and anthropologists are saying, look, if the algorithm needs to produce the best of the results, let's create a category of persona which best matches the algorithm and its features. And this is where the aspect of you look at how today the machines are being designed. They're being designed with a particular persona in mind. I mean, Facebook, when they actually send you one friend request, they analyze about 50,000 personas, kind of a thing. And that's how the beauty of those. And even Netflix recommendation engine has, I mean, millions of personas when it comes to different genres of, I would say, content and I would say stuff over there being displayed. Now, what happens over there gradually, or rather incrementally, when we see all these things, uh, emotional quotients will be captured in the machines going forward whenever there is a AI deployment or within AI algorithms. It's just in 5 to 10% is happening today. I think many of the other industries outside of banks or retail or CPG have to evolve on incorporating the emotional side of, I would say, intelligence. And I think that's where the whole acceleration would happen, where we call how the best of the best human centered design through AI can come to life.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering the question.
Thank you for that question, Chinmay, and lovely answer, Sameer. Sony, over to you.
Hi, Mushir. I joined because Anis invited me on stage. I really don't have a question right now. I am the CEO and co-founder of an AI startup, and we are in the fintech space. So if there are any questions in that space, I'll be happy to take that.
Fair enough. Anis, back to you.
Sure. And I know we have 6 minutes left for Sameer because he has an appointment which he has to get to. Sameer, going back to certain perspectives on AI, yes, there's been focus on retail, technology, and fintech, and we spoke about those examples. But Asia specifically, when you look at Asia, there's a big gap in healthcare systems as well as education. We've spoken about that, but specifically in the healthcare systems, there's been a huge gap. And today there is a lot of work happening within the AI ecosystem. What's your perspective, and where do you see that? And if you can share some examples, real examples of AI in healthcare, especially during these times of COVID, will really provide some more perspective.
Sure, sure. I think there are two examples in the interest of time, Anis, I want to call out on the healthcare side. One is this whole aspect of the screening of X-ray, MRIs, and CT scan, and it's come out to be very handy during the COVID. So what happens? I mean, we've realized in this period of COVID, the symptoms of COVID enters through the chest, and within chest there are 15 to 16 elements which can go wrong. Now, you are being asked by a radiologist to kind of do this X-ray, MRI, CT scan, and you know how tough is the life of radiologists today because of oversight exertion. They are making errors, and they usually take about 15 to 20 minutes to analyze an X-ray, CT scan, or a kind of MRI, and they are prone to making errors today because of overexertion. So, what is happening? Companies like Neramai, Zebra, Cure.ai, they are actually analyzing MRIs, X-ray, CT scan, millions of them in few milliseconds using very deep learning algorithm techniques, and some of them have also got FDA approvals, and they're quoting an accuracy range of about 95%. Now, that revolution, and it's not only restricted to the chest. I mean, whether it's a knee or diabetic retinopathy and all, many of the body anatomy areas are now being analyzed using deep learning algorithm to find any anomaly or any kind of a malfunctioning. Now, this is a big advancement over there, where we are talking about, I would say, healthcare regime in terms of the triage, which is care, going for a different change, because the prevention side, care side, can all be correlated and coming out with better solutions using these kind of, let's say, deep learning algorithms. Second, is more about, I would say, on the pharmacy side, or what I call the care management or the patient management side. Now, this is being tested in China as I speak, because this particular technology has come from US. The likes of CVS and I'm losing the name of a large pharmacy store, starts with W. Walgreens.
Walgreens.
Yes, you're right. Walgreens. Now, what they did, 7,000 deaths happen in US alone every year because of wrong prescription of drugs and medicine. And we know that today, the reason is that doctors' writing across the globe is illegible. With all due regards, I have never understood what a doctor writes. And this actually happens over there when you're walking with a prescription in the US store. You are being given a wrong prescription and fatalities are happening. Until the Walgreens and the CVS of the world said enough is enough. So what they did, they deployed a robotic processing machine which is enabled by AI at the front end of the store, and you could see some of these machines in California or LA and all. Now over there, these machines have innate ability. When you walk in across the front end of the pharmacy store, you're greeted by this machine. The machine takes your prescription. She goes through the aisle of the store, and these are large store. She also correlates the the prescription with the old kind of a, let's say, patient data, because in US, as you know, patient data records are linked. She goes through the store, picks up the relevant medicine, come to the counter, the front desk again. You can pay by a contactless credit card and walk out in less than 2 minutes. The entire accuracy rate today is 99.9%. And this exactly is what happening in China and Japan in terms of taking this particular approach, where AI is coming out to be more, I would say, a force propellant in the healthcare segment. And there are more examples, Anis, but for the sake of, I would say, my own memory, I could give two of them to you.
No, thank you, Sameer. I think those examples have been beautiful. I know we have a minute left and we have few people who've just joined in. Kunal, you want to quickly introduce yourself and have those questions coming to Sameer?
Hey, Anis, just a quick one. I can extend by 5 more minutes. I think there's another
Sure.
meeting, but I'm still waiting for that ping to happen. So good to
Okay.
get for another 5, 6 minutes.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. So I'm Kunal. I work as a data scientist at Fractal Analytics, and I work in the computer vision team. So my question is, while building a business, there's always a debate between being the first mover or the last mover, and I feel when especially building an AI capability or a business in AI, do first movers have you know a very unfair advantage? Because if the first mover is able to solve the problem even decently, they get access to the data, and through online learning they can always they have this advantage of making their models or solutions better with time. And what ultimately happens is, their services becomes less cheap, so kinds of build a monopoly. So I wanted to have uh, a view on this.
Sameer?
Let me take that, Kunal, in a very, I would say, a different. I know some of these supremacy, what we have seen from technology behemoths. without naming them, have come in from their algorithmic, I would say, prowess or capability or finesse. Now, let me also tell you, look, it's a journey. Despite you taking a first mover advantage, as I said also earlier, only 1 out of 7 algorithms makes the cut. And all the efforts of making those 7 algorithms is the same. Having said that, it's not just during this entire narration of mine. I've been very focused around kind of making everyone aware. And since I've done some 3,000 plus engagements in analytics AI over my stints, I've realized that look, every project in analytics AI or a solution what we have designed for a client is different. Problem statement is different, the data sets are different, and the ability for clients to look at key outcomes are also different. That means there could never be a structured approach to provide one solution to one client and say, look, I can rinse and repeat. And that's why you see in this entire narration, me and Anis will always use different words: AI, analytics, data science, machine learning, because that's how the nature of the beast in terms of this industry is. Because we will never be structured. Having said that, lack of structure doesn't mean we can't solve large, complex, unresolved problems through with AI. It's a determinant of how companies first build foundations of data in terms of aggregation to the infrastructure, and then look at what possible problems they are trying to solve over there. And even if that is done, the solutioning needs finesse in terms of new, I would say, assumption and caveats coming in. The example I gave, all these retail and bank companies, they all said 1 year back, if you see the media, their algorithms works beautifully. Came COVID, entire set of algorithms went for a lot of tweaking, a lot of configuration change. And that's where you see that today, when it comes to computer vision, image classification, also these areas around NLP, NLU, or speech recognition, specifically from Asia perspective, we're talking about a humongous set of opportunities which can come in terms of startups. In India per se, while we have 2,800 startups in AI, there is still a whole loss, I would say, host of things which needs to be determined. So I think that's where I think the opportunity set per se is very large for us to look into this area as a possible, I would say, competitive advantage.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks.
Thanks, Samir. Do you have time to take one more question?
Yeah, I
Shreya?
think we can take one more last one, Anis.
Sure, sounds good. Shreya, could you ask your question, please? Hi, greetings to all. Good evening. So, I'm doing political science as you know in my masters, and I'm dealing with the geopolitics of Asia. So, I just wanted to know what do you feel? You know, the AI. How does it play an important role in the geopolitics? I mean, and Asia being one of the country. So, can you just touch upon that a bit?
Shreya, my Facebook profile say I'm apolitical in terms of my views, and would like to be in that mode. But having said that, with taking out, I would say, the lighter vein apart, I would say, look, if you look at any possible today equations being discussed, whether it's a G7 or the Quad or I would say G20, uh, AI has become a strategic agenda in all these forums and meetings. So it's not only just restricted to, I would say, enterprise level. We all realize, I mean, 33 nations today, 34 to be precise, have their own AI specific strategy, as Anis also pointed out. And these strategies are nothing but more about not just building an ecosystem, but how this countries can also augment their economic output by virtue of using AI. Now, if you have seen some of the reports from Ernst and Young and even I would say McKinsey, we're talking about addition of 15.9 trillion by 2030 with the leverageability of AI coming in across country. Which means today, because we know that today every, I would say, 25, 30 years, that GDP of the country gets doubled. Now, if 15 to 16 trillion is coming from AI alone, imagine the kind of catapult, kind of a, let's say, sphere of GDP which can happen all across the country when AI is used rightly. So there is a lot of geopolitical and economic, I would say, sense it makes when we're talking about countries adopting AI. And for the lack of, I would say, better word at this stage, I would say it's an imminent need for everyone to kind of look into this space.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, I was reading on the weaponization of space and the whole.
Shreya, I think we lost you. We couldn't hear you.
Looks like she has a bad connection. Okay, Sameer, I know we stretched you for 7 more minutes, but thank you for being, having that patience and spending time with the guest, as well as the people who came on the stage. It was definitely a far enriching conversation. It's always great to hear and converse with you and talk about AI, specifically using the data. You always use data when we speak about AI. So thank you for bringing in that data element, not just perspectives. So thank you for taking time out.
Thanks, Anis and Mushir. Lovely to be part of this forum, and thanks everyone for listening to me. Thank you so much for inviting me.
For everyone who've still not got a chance, we are still there. We can continue with the conversation for another 10 minutes. And if there's any hands being raised to discuss about AI, happy to continue with that.
Maybe I just wanted to add a little bit. We had a question earlier about healthcare. A couple of examples that we can give. One is IBM Watson has been using AI for quite some time now, in particular for diagnosis, cancer research, looking at X-rays, etc. has been something that they have been doing. There's varying degree of uh, response in terms of how well they have done, but they have definitely been doing that. The second example is more from a online doctor perspective. So the Good Doctor, you may or may not have heard, which is from mainland China, and there are now multiple replicas, not just in mainland but in other parts of the world, including in India, where effectively, what the Good Doctor did was they first hired, hundreds of real human doctors to answer medical queries online, and they put their AI engines at the back to learn. And now I think a vast, over 95% of all of their queries are answered by AI doctors with very high degree of accuracy as well. So you do see that model that's being used in mainland China, and on the other end of the extreme, in terms of insurance claims, which if you cannot tie it up in the healthcare space, one other example is of Pingan that does instant claim claim payouts using AI based on image recognition. In fact, even in retail, you do see a lot of these things where, from an emotional perspective, etc. Alibaba was probably the first one to start using facial expressions for authentication. So the Smile to Pay was the first proper face recognition software used by a major company. So you had to smile while authenticating your payment transaction, and that you've seen extended now through a host of other companies doing it as well. So you do see that it's becoming almost real time in everything. Another example, last one before I close my examples on the AI usage, which I find fascinating, is on real time retail. So in mainland China, one of the things they've started doing is they have these cameras outward facing out of a store, like a major store. Let's take, say, for example, a Zara or any other fashion retail player, which will be capturing your photograph. I mean, you outside, and then it will start adding clothes on your body in terms of your image and start displaying that, so you can see real time as you go past how those clothes would look on you, and it's like kind of attracting you, privacy concerns aside. But these are the kind of, and this is real time, that a lot of AI is being used for accelerating decision making in retail and marketing as well. Deepika, welcome. You had a question.
Yeah. Hi, hello, everyone. No, I don't have a question. I was like just wanted to give some examples on healthcare as well. Like in India, also, we are having like various different startups for artificial intelligence transforming healthcare industry. Like one of the major example that some of the people might know here as well, like Nirmay Analytics. So what they do is like they have a AI algorithm, AI model, which helps to diagnose breast cancer at a very earlier stage. And it is, they are doing amazing, and they do have some customer traction also, patient traction also on their platform. So that is one of that. Also recently I have came across this Google's derma assist. So what it does is, like, if you have um any mole or any scar on your skin, so what usually people do is they just Google it. And I and there comes a meme, like, everything we see on Google, it just appears as a no, aapko cancer hai. So for that, for that problem, Google's create derma assist, जिसमें you can click a picture of your mole or your scar, and it will the AI algorithm will go through that, and it will tell you ki there is a issue of worry or not. uh, you have to need to see a doctor, or it's a normal mole. So that's what I was saying.
Now, interesting perspective, Deepika. There is a lot many examples like that, but as we said, and like we were talking about it, these experiments need to be scalable and they need to be adopted. Naturally, there is another lens, which is the adoption piece by actual users, which sometimes comes in the way. Like Mushir was talking about the retail example, barring the privacy, how many of us would be comfortable with a camera actually clicking a picture and then we real time seeing which dresses fit us? So there is that other lens too when it comes to the role of AI in Asia. Definitely, there are many of these examples, and we can go on with that. But the dermatologist one was a very interesting perspective. Nitin, welcome. You want to share some perspectives or ask some questions?
Hi. I just had a question. I just wanted to know your opinion on gamification in the industry in the coming years. Like, what's the possibility that gamification? I just heard that I think it was Spotify who just came out with Green Room, which is a rival to Clubhouse. Now they have this sort of an option where you can sort of present gems to the speakers if you like what they're speaking about, and having certain amount of gems will only indict you as a speaker. In some sessions, having minimum amount of gems, only then can you become a speaker. Now that's an example of gamification right there. So what would be the role of the video game industry in the coming years in AI and uh, other industries, if that's clear?
Sure, I can go first, and if Mushir or Pritesh have any other examples, happy to share that. So, you know, if you turn the gamification on its head, what are companies or organizations trying to do is to trying to motivate or enhance your engagement or your usage or your involvement in the entire process of whether it's an app or it's a platform like you spoke about Green Room or anything else. So that's why the lens of gamification really comes in. Like you spoke about Green Room, if you just look at Duolingo or if you look at any of these apps, the reason why they, or any of the other video games, the reason why they employ or allow gamification to play a big role, and specifically AI is being used more and more in driving gamification because you can't do it at a human level because it's impossible based on the different permutations and combination, and that's why AI plays a big role. So for user retention, user engagement, user involvement, and user and it's not just gamification in apps, but it's also in the banking, it's also in the retail side, it's also the word gamification is now big time use. Earlier it was all about next best step, upsell cross sell models have now moved into using game theory models to drive that piece, because today, using technology and using data, you can actually have those game theory principles being deployed. So gamification is here to stay. In fact, it's going to scale further. And the reason why it is going to scale further, because every one of us have those micro moments in our journeys of, and when I talk about journeys, these are not generally purchase journeys, but it can be engagement journeys or any of those. So hence gamification is going to be pretty big. Now, it's not necessary that it's going to be gimmicky. Also, like you spoke about, you need to have certain points or you need to have certain clout before you become a speaker. So there's nothing like that. There is different levels of gamification which can be employed, and it is actually being employed. In fact, Clubhouse is using gamification as we speak. So gamification is bound to stay. The game theory principles and game theory models are going to be more and more applicable as more and more data gets come in. I don't know if Mushir or Pritesh have anything from the finance or the fintech side as they see those applications.
Now, I'll just reiterate what you said. I think there quite a bit of gamification that's taking place. And when you look at e-commerce, right, and you may not call it gamification, but people like you like this, or people who bought this product bought this. That suggestion that was there and the prompt that Amazon started with has now become much more sophisticated, and we can see that progressing in terms of investment products, or people who make investments in uh, different products are being offered similar products, or you could also use the gamification when it comes to trader rankings and getting people to participate more. Somebody spent more, do you also want to do that kind of element? I think.
All right. Now, just on a closing notes, and some thank you to Mushir, Pritesh, and everyone for coming in and setting the stage up. I believe Sony has come on stage. Sony, you want to share some perspectives before we close the room?
Sure. It was about fintech, right? So what we do is we provide early warning systems, mostly for managing the loan portfolios. So one of the things that we do with the early warnings is when that's provided, the CPMs are probably going to take some action based on the warnings we give, and we learn from that. So the system is more like an augmented learning system. So just wanted to throw that also out there.
No, early warning systems are pretty big, whether it is in finance, whether it is in supply chain, whether it is in IoT based systems, in whether these can be your data sectors, or it can be, if you just think an example of an autonomous car, there are so many early warning systems made available. Like in Tesla, if Tesla detects the driver doesn't have the hand on the steering wheel for a certain time, it will pass on a warning, or it will tell the driver that you have to put the hand back on the wheel. Same with, if the Tesla detects that the driver is probably sleeping, or it can hear that the driver is sleeping because the driver is snoring. It can, that's another example of early warning systems. So definitely early warning systems is also using game theory models, like you mentioned, Sony.
Right.
Now, just on a closing note, like I was saying, Mushir, Pritesh, thank you for setting this up. It was a fun conversation on a Sunday. For all of you who've been patiently listening, thank you for taking time out. But my only closing note on role of AI in Asia is I strongly believe because of the economy, because we don't have a baseline to start off. There is so much of technology adoption which is happening at a rapid scale, and whenever there is technology adoption, there is definitely increase of data, and with increase of data, AI becomes a dominant force to really apply that in everything we do. And if whether there are startup founders over here or people who are in the investment community, I think Asia has and will become a further dominant force in the years to come. Mashir?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot that's going on. One of the things you will see in the next 5 years is more regulations around AI. This is a small note. A year or 2 years, 2 years ago, EU introduced something that they are considering, which is robot taxes. So for automation, when robots take over human jobs. So if you are a factory that has only robots, you'll start paying a little bit of tax to cover for the healthcare, etc. burden, that social burden that a lot of European economies and OECD has. Secondly, is from an Asia perspective, you may start seeing a little bit of a divide between the haves and have-nots of AI. As was mentioned, the more talent that is there, even in places where AI is being extensively used, like in China, AI talent is in huge demand, sometimes going upwards of $1 million for the top data scientists. So you will see a bit of happening. So collaboration between different countries is going to be quite interesting. But inherently, enough and more machine learning models and deep learning models are in place for most things to have some element of artificial intelligence embedded in them as we go forward. Right. On that note, thank you everybody for having joined us today, and thank you Anis and Master Decoded for bringing Sameer to our club. We are Asian Digital Super Movers. We bring in OGs and digital leaders from across Asia on different industries, in particular in product management, DeFi, fintech, and on venture building and scaling. Please follow the moderators on the stage for more topics like these. Anis holds our joint session with Masters Decoded every Sunday at the same time. So keep the notification on for this moderators for you to participate in the other rooms that we are part of. And if you have any suggestions for any future speakers or future topics, please reach out to us on our social media platforms as well as on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, where we are available. So thanks once again. Don't forget to follow the Asian Digital Super Movers. We'll be closing the room in a few seconds, and thanks once again.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please, you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.